and TBR video. So my goals for 2023 and my first TBR of 2023. So here, in a very speedy manner, are my goals for 2023. I am planning on continuing working with my online community that I read Shakespeare with every year. In 2020, we read all of Shakespeare. In 2021, we read all of the histories. In 2022, we read all of the comedies. And in 2023, we're going to read all of the tragedies. So that will be exciting and sad, but they're a great community and I'm really excited to continue on with them. I will once again participate in the Read Harder Challenge. I host a Facebook group with just very close-knit group of people, not open to the public, but just a close-knit group of friends who live all over the place. And we just read through the Read Harder Challenge every year together and report to each other and encourage each other and give suggestions and all of that stuff. So that's a great community that I will continue to read with this year. I'm going to participate in the Dickens Along where I desire to. So I'm not, like, for example, I'm not going to reread The Old Curiosity Shop because, try to get her in the shot, because I did not enjoy The Old Curiosity Shop and I'm not ready to reread that yet. So if there's a book that I don't want to reread for the Dickens Along, then I won't reread it. For the books that I do want to reread, I will reread them in the time that they are on the schedule. I want to read for the Buzzword Readathon this year. I've never done it before, but I would like to do it this year. I want to tackle bunches and bunches of series this year. I own a bunch of series that I have either purchased and never read or purchased and only read half of. Plus there are also mini series that I would like to start that have been on my radar for a while that I have never read. So I'm gonna make series my focus this year. I want to read some really, like, every month I want to be heavily weighted toward comforting, reflective, kind of slow down sorts of reads. You will see, though, that I have quite a lot of other kinds of reads, but I want to make a focus or intentionally put those kinds of books on every TBR this year. And I don't have any hard and fast rules for this, but I want to prioritize books that I have on my Kindle and books that I have on Audible. So in a nutshell, those are my goals for 2023. They are super simple. Before I show you my TBR, I want to introduce you to some books that I plan on working through for the whole year. So another one of my goals, a very specific goal, one of the very few very specific goals that I have, is that I want to memorize 12 poems this year. And so to do that, I have this beautiful, really wonderful collection of poetry. It's called The Fire of Joy. It's pulled together by Clive James. And it's called Roughly 80 Poems to Get by Heart and Say Aloud. So each month, at the beginning of the month, I will read 5 to 6 poems from this book in order. I'll just read the first, like in January, I'll read the first 6. And then of those 6, I will choose one to try to memorize over the course of January. And then hopefully in my wrap-up video, I will be able to recite for you a poem. I'm not doing it for you, I'm doing it for me, but how much fun is it going to be if I can recite for somebody a poem? So the hope is that I will have read all 80 of these poems by the end of the year, but also that I will have 12 poems memorized by the end of the year. I'm excited about that. So this is an ongoing project over the course of the entire year. Then each day, I would like to dip into this, a year in art, a painting a day. I believe this is put out by the Metropolitan Museum of Art. They have other ones like a sculpture a day and then just like general art a day, but these all happen to be paintings. And I'll just open up to a random day here. Oh, not that random day, because there's some nudity there. There, that one works. So there'll be a famous painting. And then up in the corner, it will tell you who the painting's by, when they painted it, what the name of it is, and where it can be found today, what collection it's housed in today. And also there will always be a quote, not necessarily about the painting, but a quote from the artist of the painting. And that's it. That's the whole thing. Just that little 2-page spread, one of those for each day of the year. And so I am really excited to do that. I'll probably just look at it each morning with my coffee and be on my way. Then I also, each day of the year, want to dive into this. This is Classical Music to Enjoy Day by Day, A Year of Wonder by Clemency Burton Hill. So what this is that on each day, there is a little story, history, devotional discussion about the music, as well as a song or emotion in a song of classical music. And it tells you who it's by and when it was written and all of that. So what I would like to do each day is to listen to the song of the day, classical music, which I don't know much about, and to read the little daily reading that accompanies that song each day. If I miss a day, no big deal. But the goal is to be exposed to and learn about 365 different pieces of classical music, because like I said, I really don't know all that much about classical music. Then I would like each week of the year to work through this. This is the 52-week devotional Seasons of Wonder, making the ordinary sacred through projects, prayers, reflections, and rituals. So each week there are a couple of like lesson type things to read in here that are seasonally related, but there are also recipes to cook and little art projects to make and little journal entries or journal prompts to focus on. So I would like to work through this over the course of the year. And then similarly, but only to be visited 4 times total in the year, is the self-care year. This I will look at seasonally. So I'll start at the end of the book actually with winter. In winter, it has these different focuses and these different activities for each focus. So it's also really beautiful. So there are like these gorgeous illustrations, but then there are also poems that you can read. It tells you a recipe for something that will relate to your sense of smell. It talks about cinnamon for that. It talks about clarity and it relates it to the landscape of winter. There's a breathing exercise, just all sorts of things that are meant to be mindful and centering, and I will use this seasonally. And then every month I would like to read 1 chapter from this book. There are 12 chapters. This is a flow book. If you're familiar with flow, they put out some really wonderful mindful things that are also related and grounded in creativity. And so this is a great book that I picked up quite a long time ago and have never worked my way through it at all. So each month there will be some sort of paper item in here. They have such beautiful stationery stuff. So there'll be some sort of paper item, some sort of activity to do, some journaling, maybe between 4 and 5 essays about the theme of that particular month. So for example, in January, I can look forward to the topic being time to breathe. And then there are 15 pages devoted to the month of January. Oh, actually there are only 6. Okay, so in January and February, I just have to work through 15 pages of information in here. And the focus in January and February will be time to breathe. So every 2 months, I will look at this every 2 months. And those are my goals for those are books that are a goal for my whole year. And I'll check in about them every once in a while, but I'm not going to show them on other TBRs. They're just things that are going on in the background for my own personal edification and self. They're not things that, I might recommend them at the end of the year, but they're not things that I'm reading, thinking, I wonder if people will like this or not. It's all about me. Okay, moving on to the actual TBR, my January TBR. I'm so excited about it. So I'm going to start by sharing with you the series that I'll start the year with. And like I said, the focus is on series. So don't be surprised by the amount of series that I'll be starting in January. So first of all, a book that I have on my Kindle. So this checks off a Kindle focus, a Kindle prioritization that I think is going to be a series that I really enjoy, but I'm not sure, is this one, The Keeper of Enchanted Rooms. There are 2 books in this series so far. Both of them are on Kindle Unlimited. So if I do enjoy that first book, then I'll pick up the second book right away. And if I don't enjoy that first book, then I'll ignore the second book for the rest of my life. But this one I think it takes place in the 1800s. I think it's a fantasy. I know it's a fantasy. It looks cozy and sweet. It's got some romance aspects to it. A man inherits a house, but that house, he's excited to live in it. Nobody's lived in it for 100 years. When he arrives, the house closes him inside and won't let him out. And so a woman who works at a university nearby, who knows how to talk to houses or something, comes to help figure out what's going on with the house. Basically, she's kind of like a counselor or a psychologist for the house, I think. But there's also an added element of romance there, and there's an added element of something sinister making its way, moving towards the house. Like it wants something from the house or from the man who inherited the house. So there's going to be some kind of epic battle, I think. Also, it's cozy and warm and sweet, I think. So I think I will really like it, but we will see. We will see. Then I think this is the perfect series to start in January. I only own the first book so far. It's a trilogy. If I love it, I'll get the second book and read that. If I don't, then I'll give this to somebody else. But I've been wanting to read this for some time and have never gotten to it. So this is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, and I'm sure that everybody and their brother already knows what this is about, but I think it is about, I'm not exactly sure, but I think that it is about a Russian village and a small family that lives there, and a nanny that tells some scary stories or some folklore stories that involve demons and things to the children that she takes care of, and then the father remarries, and the new mother is maybe kind of evil stepmother-ish, and she does not want those stories told anymore, but then bad things start to happen in the village, and somehow maybe those two things are related, like the ceasing to tell the stories of the demons and demon activity might be related. I'm not sure. So I'm excited to read that and to find out what it's really about. And if you already know what it's about, good on you. I am going to start The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels by India Holton. I know this book is right up my alley. I read the first chapter standing in a bookstore and just knew that I had to read the entire series. So I own the first two books already, and the third book is coming out in 2023, and I will read it. I know I'm going to love them. They are silly and fantasy and romance and espionage, and also, in the first book anyway, lots of references to Jane Eyre, so I'm excited. I'm really excited to read that. Then a series that I own more than half of but have never read a word from is Poldark. This is the first book, Ross Poldark by Winston Graham. I have watched some of the first TV series and enjoyed it. I found the characters compelling, but I didn't continue with watching it, and I'm not sure why. I know these books are written in like the 1940s, I think, and I generally like books written in that time period. I kind of like the pacing of them and the way that they unfold. So I'm hoping that I'm going to love this series, especially since I own over half of it already. But if I don't love it, at least I will know, and I can unhaul those books and give them to somebody who will love them. But I'm going to start with the first book in the series, Ross Poldark, and see how that goes. The first book is about a soldier who was fighting, I think, against Napoleon. I think he was in like Waterloo and stuff like that. Or maybe it's the American Revolution. I think it's the American Revolution. I think he went to fight in the American Revolution, and then he came back to Cornwall, and his fiance is marrying his cousin or something. So she's no longer his fiance. And I think he's lost his ancestral home or something. Anyway, I think it's going to be fun, and I think it's going to be the kind of historical fiction that I really enjoy. But we will see. We will see. If I don't enjoy it, I will move on. I'm going to reread Poison Princess by Cressley Cole. This is the Arcana Chronicle series. It's a YA dystopian future series about good versus evil, kind of. But I am going to read this because I, years ago, read the first, I think 4, maybe 3 books in the series. I think there are going to ultimately be 6 or 7 books in the series. I know the last book is supposed to come out this year, but they've been talking about releasing it for several years now, and it hasn't been released yet, I don't think. So it has a release date on Goodreads, but I think it has had a different release date every year on Goodreads for the past few years. Hopefully, in the year that I decide to pick it up again, the final book will be released. But I read the first few of these years ago and really enjoyed them. I don't remember much, so I'm excited to do a reread. I do remember that it's about, at least the first book, is about a girl, and she discovers that she has special powers as the apocalypse begins. She is going to have to team up with apparently this dude right here. And her name is Evie and his name is Jack. And Evie and Jack pre-apocalyptic times don't really gel. So there's hate to love in this. But then also I do remember that I think he's Death. He may not be Death, but he's like Death, her enemy. She kind of falls in love with him too. So I don't remember much about the series, but I remember really enjoying it. It's very fast-paced, it's very angsty, it's very easy to read, and so I am looking forward to getting back into that. And I remember I listened to part of it on Audible, and I remember that the person who reads the story, at least for Evie, it might have been in a multi-cast, but I remember the very, very strong Southern accent of the narrator, and it felt put on. It was so strong. So I'm glad to own physical copies of the books and to read them in my own head now. In the category of series I own a lot of books from but have never read a single word of is Outlander. So I am planning on starting Outlander. I think I'm going to love this series, but I don't know for sure. I have watched a couple of the seasons of the show, but it's been a while. Enjoy the show, but I think that there will be more depth in the books. I could be wrong, but I think that there will be more character development in the books. And I can't really tell you what else is going on in these books besides the romance part of it. And so these are thick books and there's a lot of them. There's got to be more going on than romance, right? She says, hopefully. So I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to see if I love it. And if I don't, then I'll know to stop collecting those books. And then I'm going to revisit, start at the beginning, but finish the Discovery of Witches series. I don't know what the series is called. But there are 3 books. It's a trilogy plus a 4th book, which I think is a companion or a prequel or something like that. I have read the first 2 books. I have read them, but it's been almost a decade since I read them. And I am excited to revisit the 2 books. I don't remember the nitty-gritty. I do remember the nitty-gritty. I don't remember everything else. I know that there's a witch and a vampire. I know she's kind of an unwilling witch. I know she finds a grimoire. I know that they fall in love. That's all I know. So I am excited to reread these 2 and to then move on and finish the series. I'm pretty positive that I will finish the series because I already know that I enjoy it. And I have not watched the show. I don't think I want to watch the show. I've watched 1 episode of it and I didn't like the cast. They didn't feel like what I imagined in my head. But after I finish reading the books, maybe I'll want to watch the series. I don't know. We'll see. So those are the series that I'm going to start in January, and I may continue on with all of them, or you may see some different series starting in February if I decide to abandon some of those. Next is a stack of 3 books that are books that I will read for sure in the month of January. One of those is Timon of Athens. Timon of Athens is our Shakespearean tragedy for the month. It's basically about this guy in the Roman era who has a lot of money. He spends a lot of money on his friends, and then what happens when he runs out of money. And it's a tragedy, so keep in mind what happens. It's going to be tragic. And then I am going to, of course, read Nicholas Nickleby. I'm very excited to revisit Nicholas Nickleby. When I read it the first time, it was the very, very first time that I had read it, and I wasn't familiar with the story at all, and I absolutely loved this book. It is so meandering. There are so many people. It is infuriating and heartbreaking and hilarious. There are so many things. When a book is this thick and written by Charles Dickens, there are so many things that you can focus on and notice, but there are going to be so many things that I missed. And so I know it's going to feel like the first time of reading the book, but it's also going to feel really familiar. That was my experience with Pickwick. And so I'm excited to to dive back into this one. It's a weird thing that a book this long, you can finish it and feel like you didn't have enough, but that is what I remember with Nicholas Nickleby. So I am excited to go back into that one, and we'll be rereading that. I'll read the first half in January, and the second half in February. That's the schedule, and I will stick to it. And then for my real life book group, they chose Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I don't know how I'm going to feel about this book. I think that it is maybe, I haven't read these, but I think it's maybe the darkest book on my stack this month. I hear I have a feeling that it was Emma at Drinking by My Shelf, but it might have been somebody who I actually know in real life. Somebody I know who either looks or talks like Emma, or maybe Emma herself, said that it's a nicer version of A Little Life, and I do not want to read that, but I did vote for it before I heard that, and because in my mind I thought it was about two computer gamers, and I think it is about two computer gamers, but obviously there's more going on than that. Also, I voted for it because the vote happened when I was teaching Macbeth, and Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow is a quote from Macbeth. So I have to read that in January, so I will, and that is my In Real Life book club pick. I have not been part of my In Real Life book club for a while, since August, so I'm excited to rejoin forces with them. Then for the BuzzRead challenge, and also because it's an Audible book that I own that I haven't listened to, I'm going to listen to Living the Simply Luxurious Life. I bought this on a whim several years ago. I don't know if it's the kind of book that I'm gonna like or not. I kind of feel like not, but it's got the word life in it, so it fits for Buzzword. It is an Audible book that I need to listen to because I own it, but I haven't listened to it yet. And I think it's gonna be an easy one to listen to and get through. And so I'm gonna do it. Gonna give it a shot, and we'll see. Maybe I'll end up being a favorite book of the year. Who knows? Living the Simply Luxurious Life. For my two books that I'm going to read for the Read Harder Challenge this month, the first one is Light from Unknown Stars. I have ordered a used copy of this from Better World Books, but it hasn't arrived yet. And so I will have a physical copy of this for the wrap up, but Light from Unknown Stars, this is to fulfill the prompt of either a trans author or a trans character or both. And also, I think that I just really want it. It's the one that has like the donut shop. I think it deals with quite serious themes, but also there's this idea that there's this donut shop that's run by aliens. I don't know. I've purposefully not read too much about it, but I do know that the author is trans, and I do know there's a trans protagonist in this story. I'm going to read it. It's sci-fi, futuristic, maybe cozy, but I think also dealing with very heavy themes. So that will be my first read for the Read Harder Challenge, and my second read for the Read Harder Challenge is a book that I have also ordered, but it has not arrived yet. That is Diary of a Provincial Lady. And I'm going to read this one to fulfill the read one of your favorite author's favorite books. And I don't know if it's her favorite book, but I saw a list. I picked Sophie Kinsella because I wanted something light, and I figured Sophie Kinsella, who I do really enjoy, she is definitely one of my favorite authors, but I figured she probably reads some light stuff. So I went to her, and I found a list. She was giving recommendations, and one of the recommendations that she was giving was this classic from the 20s that I've never read, but I really enjoy books written in the 20s, and it's called The Diary of a Provincial Lady. It's slim. It's a slim little volume. It's supposed to be humor, maybe a comedy of manners, and it's a book that she recommended, so I'm going to say it's probably a book she enjoys. And those are the two books I'm going to read for the Read Harder Challenge in the month of January. Then I have a pre-order coming in. That is Spare by Prince Harry, and I am looking forward to reading this. This is his memoir that he has released. I'm not sure what it's going to cover, and so it's going to be about him, but it's him getting to tell his own story, and it's called Spare, which is like he's the spare heir, right? His brother is the first one, and Harry is the spare. So I don't think it's going to focus too much on Meghan. I think that, or their relationship, or the things that they're going through now, or the Netflix documentary stuff, or anything like that. I think it's really just his story. Could be wrong, but I pre-ordered it because I love Prince Harry. Then I have this slim little volume, which looks like a coffee table book, but actually has quite a lot of text inside of it. So it's a substantial read. This is called, and I could be saying this incorrectly, but I think I'm saying it right, Ichigo Ichie, The Art of Making the Most of Every Moment the Japanese Way. This is what it says on the cover. It's about slowing down, being meditative, being reflective, and I'm excited to read this. And it's on the back, it says, learn to make every moment a once-in-a-lifetime experience with this definitive guide to the Japanese art of Ichigo Ichie. And there is this little graphic on the back. It focuses on celebration, good company, mindfulness, timelessness, and inspiring place. So I am excited to read that one. And then I've got this memoir, which is Geography of Faith, An Altar in the World by Barbara Brown Taylor. She wrote a previous book called Leaving the Church, which I have not read, but this is her memoir and what she's learned after leaving the church, but not leaving her faith, just leaving the church, and how she has found place of worship in the world and magic in the ordinary. So I am looking forward to reading that. It is a memoir, but it is also a slow down, reflective sort of book. Then this one is kind of a 21st book on my 20 book TBR, because I did not purchase this or plan on reading it, but I was asked by my school to read The Awakened Brain by Lisa Miller, The New Science of Spirituality and Our Quest for an Inspired Life. And I think it's going to be a great read. I think it's going to be really interesting. I have read the first chapter now, and I do think that this is going to have a lot of information that is of interest to me, but I'm reading it for work, basically. That is because this author, Lisa Miller, is coming to speak to our school. And then this is a feel-good read. This is The Invisible Husband of Frick Island by Colleen Oakley. This is about a woman whose husband dies, but she does not acknowledge it. She just continues to live as if he is still alive, and the town doesn't quite know what to do with that. And so they also live as if he's alive. And then this reporter comes to report on a different story, but hears the story of the invisible husband, and decides to stick around and get to know her better so that he can write this story about this crazy woman and this crazy town that enables this delusion. But I think that there's a twist somewhere. There's a twist. And then, maybe this is the darkest book I have on this TBR, but I started Book of the Month. So this is another goal that I forgot to mention. I want to read all my Book of the Month books. So when I do get a Book of the Month, like if I don't skip it, I would like to read it by the end of the month that it belongs, by the end of the month after the month it belongs to. So like, this was the December pick. I would like to have finished it by the end of January. If I get a January pick, I would like to have finished it by the month of February. I don't want Book of the Month books stacking up. I joined Book of the Month specifically so I could get Babbel on the cheap. And also because my sister, I gave her a gift subscription and she's been having a great time with it. So I was like, I want to get in on that. So I wanted to give it a try anyway, but the impetus was $5 to join for your first book, and Babbel was on the roster. So I went for it. And I am going to read this. We all know what this is about, or at least what we want to know about it. And I will join the Babbel crew and get that read. Only 2 more books. I pulled some books off of my TBR shelves, 12 of them. So 1 a month I'm going to read off of my TBR shelves that I've been wanting to get to for quite some time. A lot of them are middle grade books, for which this is the case in January, but not all of them. Some of them are nonfiction and some of them are literary fiction. But this one happens to be a classic from, I think, the 40s or the 50s that I've had on my TBR for a while. And I am finally going to get to The Sherwood Ring by Elizabeth Marie Pope. And in this, I think there's a young woman in the 50s who ends up going to live at her ancestral home and is very isolated there, but she realizes that there are some ghosts and there's a mystery, and she joins forces with these ghosts to solve the mystery or something. I don't know. It sounds wonderful and atmospheric. It's a middle grade book. It's a it's a 1950s book. I think that it's going to be cozy and wonderful, and I'm finally going to read it. So you'll see one book pulled off of my shelf each month. I have picked 12 of them, one for each month, and that is the first one. And then this was another pre-order, and this will be a fast, it's thick, but it will be a fast, easy read. I really enjoy this author. There are few YA authors left that I truly enjoy. This is one of them. I truly enjoy her books. And she released a new book called 1,000 Heartbeats. And this is how much I know that I love Kira Cass's writing. This, I think, is a very Romeo and Juliet story. And the Romeo and Juliet story is my least favorite kind of story. And I still pre-ordered this baby. I don't know much about it. It's totally cheesy, but it says on the back, I told myself that it had been the rain. It was something hitting the mountain, or a tree falling, or anything else really. But every time Linux smiled or touched me, or even looked at me a certain way, I would hear it again. The sound of 1,000 heartbeats. I'm here for it. I'm really looking forward to reading this. There will be books from my December TBR that I don't get to, and those will be the first ones that I reach for in my whim reading in January. Also, on my Libby app from my library, I do have Bono's memoir, which I'd really like to listen to. So that might make it onto my TBR as well. I don't know, but these are the planned things. These are the things I'm going to hold myself accountable for. These are the things that I will read this year, whether I read them in January or February or March, they will be read. That big old list of series that I'm going to start this month, if I'm not enjoying them, I will get rid of the series and I'll start a new one. You do not know. I have so many series that I want to get through this year. Maybe not get through reading them all, but like attempt, decide, make decisions, make informed decisions about this year. That's the goal. That's the main goal. The next time you see me, I will be doing my December reading wrap up. Just to quickly recap, 1,000 Heartbeats, The Sherwood Ring, Babel, The Invisible Husband of Frick Island, The Awakened Brain, An Altar in the World, Spare, Living the Simply Luxurious Life, Diary of a Provincial Woman, Light from Unknown Stars, Nicholas Nickleby, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, Ichigo Ichie, Timon of Athens, Keeper of Enchanted Rooms, The Bear and the Nightingale, The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels, Ross Poldark, Poison Princess, Outlander, A Discovery of Witches. Have you read these series? Have you abandoned any of these series? Based on these series, do you have any to recommend? Please don't. I have enough to read. No kidding. Please recommend. Are you interested in any of the standalones or the nonfictions that I have mentioned? Are you doing anything, like any challenges similar to mine that involved memorizing poetry? I am really excited about this one. Really excited about this one. So anyway, that's it. I am so close to finishing The Starless Sea. So close. I'm gonna finish it today, I'm pretty sure. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. It's cold. It's so cold here today. Snow is still everywhere, even though we haven't had snow for a while, but I think it's supposed to snow a little bit more tonight. We are under a winter weather advisory, so we are just hunkering down, staying home, staying warm. To be honest, watching a lot of Christmas movies. But reading today. So let's go read. Bye.